Welcome to today's presentation on the best free CTC tools for Civil3D. My name is Brian Lewandowski. I'm the Civil Product Manager here at CTC Software, and I will be giving the presentation today. I'm going to give you a quick introduction on some of these tools, and then I'll jump into Civil3D and show you firsthand how they work. One here is called Feature Line to Alignment. And it does a very straightforward thing, but something that you can't find natively in Civil3D. It allows us to convert feature lines or survey figures into alignments and profiles. There's a lot of use cases for this. It might be simply you're changing gears on how you're designing your project. A lot of times what people do, surveyors use it to get design data like a feature line that represents something in the grading plan. They want to extract that and get all the 3D profile information and load into their data collectors for staking. You can't do that with a feature line or a survey figure. Alignments and profiles easily export to universal platforms like Trimble, Topcon, Leica, and so on. So it helps with construction staking or just general data conversion. And the interface is very much what you might be used to in that familiar command to create an alignment from a polyline. This is kind of like that, right? But it's from a feature line and it reads all the 3D data. So we have all the profile options as well. Another free tool is called Surveysweeper. And this helps automate tedious processes when you're working with survey databases, your existing topo data you're bringing into survey databases to create automatic line work. Okay, the way those databases work with drawings is often quite clumsy. This helps keep all that in sync. And it's fairly straightforward. I'll show you this firsthand, what I mean, but when you're working with databases and you're perhaps massaging or fixing up a survey, you often get in this situation where you're creating duplicate survey figures and just a really annoying kind of thing. And what this tool will do is to help sync any of those kind of deletions across both your drawings and database at once. A pipe networks part swapper. This allows you to swap multiple parts in a single command. Natively, you're doing that one at a time, and you can only do it in plan and profile. So with this tool, you can select in plan or profile, or you can choose an entire network. You can update entire sections of your pipe networks at once. And a recent feature we added was you can retain the size when swapping types. So say you're swapping out an entire network, and you want to maintain the sizes, but you want to switch pipe types or material types. You could swap out the part family, yet retain size, and it'll match up all those part sizes within each family. Now it'll prompt you if there isn't a matching size, and it gives you a good workflow on how to select a replacement size, but a really nice feature. Another tool for people using corridors. This helps you to automatically remove corridor targets from your corridors. And a lot of people find this valuable because building out a corridor with all of its targeting, it's not often just a simple linear process. You often go down the road a bit and then you make a change and well, let's build it this way, or even the design changes and you need to accommodate that. Removing corridor targets, believe it or not, it's a very tedious process. It's a one-by-one thing. It shouldn't be. Why can't we just take a part of my corridor or the whole corridor and reset that? So it'll drastically improve the updating and the management time of your corridors as you're changing things in your design and your approach to how you're modeling your corridor. It's a simple interface where you get your whole corridor definitions, the baselines and regions. You can choose which ones you want, and it'll strip out hundreds of targets at once across the 3 main target types if you so choose. Another tool is called LineType Manager. This is more for CAD management workflows. It allows you to edit and create line types in an intuitive interface. You get a live preview as you work. So the second screen is right in the editor view of a particular line type. As I change parameters on, say, the text size, the text offsets or rotation, this preview will update live, okay? Normally, you're working in this LineType file, and you really don't know the result as you're doing it. So what do? You take a guess at it in the LineType file. That is, if you remember how that kind of coding language works in there. You import in your drawing, see how it looks, and then you go, and then you ask, does that look right? And most likely it doesn't. You go back, try it again, and you waste a lot of time. So it makes for a lot faster LineType creation and editing. One question is, does LineType Manager work with metric line types? Absolutely it does. It'll read any of those line type sizes. We're going to add a feature to this soon as well, where you can create conversions between, say, an imperial and a metric line type file. And what you'd be able to do, there'll be an option down here where you can apply a scaling factor to the dimensions or the geometric parameters in the code of that line type, and it'll easily convert between imperial and metric. So absolutely, however that line type is defined, it'll read that. For example, like in the screenshot, here are some of those ISO files. These are in more metric standards, so it will read that and will work with that, no problem. So let's jump into Civil3D. Let me show you how some of this stuff works. So the first 4 tools are part of what is called our Sim project suite. It's a whole suite of tools. It installs as a single ribbon right within Civil3D. Okay. Now all of these tools are free for a trial period, but the light green ones, which are the ones I highlighted, these are the ones that are free indefinitely. And so we wanted to make sure those of you who are after just some of the free ones, or perhaps not interested in the others, you at least know what you got in these free tools. And then the Sim Manager suite is a CAD management suite of tools. And in that one, we have one free tool, and that is the LineType Manager I mentioned. So I'll show you all of these in action so you get a good sense of how they work. So feature line to alignment, the example I've got here is some site grading performed with some feature lines. I can pick one of these feature lines, say I want to take this back a curb. I'm a surveyor, I need to get an alignment and profile for that. Okay, if I'm going to Trimble with it, I need an RXL file. Or maybe I just want to go to XML with it. Okay, I need that in an alignment and a profile, not a feature line. Or perhaps you're going to GeoPack or inroads with it, right? Alignments and profiles transfer well. Again, feature lines, not so well. So I can pick this feature line, which has all sorts of elevations and a profile defined, and give a name to my new alignment. We'll call it back of curb. And I have all the standard options you'd have in any kind of Civil3D interface. Let's choose my profile style. We'll give it a design profile style. Now, you don't have to create the profile. There's an option right here, but you can choose to do so. We can reverse the direction on the fly. We can even erase existing entities. Depends on what your workflow is. If I'm in a design workflow where I want to simply switch gears from working with feature lines to alignments and profiles, I would do that. Or if it's this construction staking scenario where I want to extract data from the design file, in that case, I perhaps wouldn't want to erase. We've got starting stationing, we can provide it if we want. I can choose to draw this in a profile view right away. And behind me, you saw the alignment created. Labels are showing up right away on that, so we know that alignment was made. And then this is just the native profile view wizard. I'll go ahead and select that alignment we just made, and we'll create this profile view down here just so you can get a visual of what was created, okay? So up here, that's my alignment, the exact horizontal geometry of the feature line. Down here, the profile. This is the exact horizontal or vertical geometry of the feature line. Now, there's something to note here. I've had a lot of surveyor techs say, well, Brian, why don't I just, explode that and make a polyline and create alignment and then cut a surface profile from my finished grade surface. part of the problem is you can't take a surface profile and export it in the same way you can on a layout profile. So in Civil3D, there are two distinct types of profiles, layout and surface profiles. What we want is a layout profile, basically the type you would create when you're creating a proposed profile. That's what we want. That's what we'll export to a Trimble RXL and other platforms. Now, there is kind of a convoluted approach. In fact, I taught this years ago when I was doing a lot of consulting, where you can get a surface profile and get it converted into a layout profile. And I actually taught it to a lot of people. And when I would check in with them later, I'd say, well, are you doing that thing where I go, no, Brian, I can't remember. And it's quite fair. It was a very convoluted approach on how to create alignment and layout profile from a feature line. And that was kind of inspiration to make a simple tool that would do it for you. Let me run the same operation just so you can see it as an example. It works on survey figures as well. Oftentimes a project, a topo was done on it, and then there isn't really a redesign of curb lines, for example, but we need to restake that curb because it was totally replaced. We just want to put it back the way it was. I used to do a lot of construction staking, and that was often a case for me as well. So this is a survey figure, okay? We can run the same command on survey figures. Maybe this one is BOC2. We'll go ahead and create the profile view as well. Put in a profile. I've got just some random styles in here, so it may not be the prettiest, but you get the idea. There is my layout profile made from a survey figure and my alignment made from a survey figure, okay? So feature line to alignment, a free tool, a simple utility. You know, I've got people, it's a part of their normal routine. You know, it's a pretty simple tool, admittedly, but it saves you a lot of time and can certainly help surveyors who are needing to do data prep for staking purposes. Let's talk about Surveysweeper. I'd mentioned it in the intro. It's a little hard to explain there. What it does is it helps with workflows when using survey databases to process topo survey data. An example I've got here, I've got some survey data that was brought in, and there was some miscoding, as there often is. It's easy to do that. And the nice thing about Civil3D is we can take that information, and if something was miscoded, I can change the survey code on it, okay? That one that had 2 C's, and for that reason, this concrete pad didn't connect in that corner. That's my automatic line work, my survey figures there. And then over here, I was perhaps supposed to have another edge of concrete line, but the surveyor just happened to forget to put the B code in here. Now, this is all native functionality so far here. If we make coding changes to those points, we can tell it to refresh or redraw the line work in Civil3D. A really nice, powerful function in Civil3D. Yet one of the drawbacks is while it fixes those, it has this potential to duplicate other figures. Okay, this figure wasn't there before, now it's there. This one up here is back, okay? And the reason this happens is if you happen to have taken a survey figure and made a figure edit to it, like you changed the order of some points if they were shot out of order, maybe you added a point that should have been part of it. Okay, if you did survey figure editing, which is another powerful tool when working with survey databases, if you then go and do point changes like this and refresh your line work, what it does is it always creates all these duplicates. And the challenge is that these things are in your database as well, okay? So my figures in this database, they are in here. And why is that important? It's because my break lines for my surface come from my survey database, okay? Now, if you guys aren't using survey databases to process your topo data, if you're doing, if you're connecting that line work by hand, for example, I get the workflows. Sometimes there's a bit of a learning curve there with the survey databases, but I highly recommend it. In fact, we've got a lot of AU classes out there that show you how to get it set up. This is one of those points so that it's a real headache. And so that's why we made this free tool where I don't have to go searching through my database for all these duplicate figures. I can use Surveysweeper and I can just pick them on the screen. And I can pick these on the screen and do an erase command, but all that does is remove them from the drawing, when in fact what I need them to be removed from my database at the same time. A simple thing, you'd think, right? Why can't I just delete from the screen and then delete from my database? Nevertheless, they don't do that. So Surveysweeper, there's no form or major interface that launches, but it will delete survey figures and survey points, any number of them you pick on the screen. It will delete them out of the drawing, of course, which is the easy part, but more importantly, it deletes them out of your survey database. When used properly, the survey database is your single source of truth in Civil3D, okay? And when it's important that represents the accurate final topo. So that is Surveysweeper. People use it for a lot of different things. Here's another duplicate over here. You can see perhaps there's just some bad points. You want to remove them, again, not just from the drawing, but from the database at the same time. You can run that command. It will delete them out of the database at the same time. For example, if I grab point 226, okay, didn't want to do it quite yet. 226 exists in my drawing right now. You scroll, or excuse me, in my survey database. There it is, okay. And this works the same way with survey figures. I pick this or any other points I want to delete it. Of course, it deletes it from the drawing again, but more importantly, 226 is extracted from my database, which is a very painful place to work to remove that or modify that stuff. So anyway, straightforward tool. What is it? A glamorized delete button? Yes, but it doesn't exist in Civil3D, and so that's why we made a simple free tool for you guys to help along with that workflow. Let's talk pipe networks a bit. In Civil3D, when you're designing with pipe networks, it's quite routine to be changing out parts from one to another because you perhaps inserted the wrong one, or maybe you just kind of defaulted to one structure or pipe type as you were laying it out, and now you need to assign different structure or pipe types. You can only do it one at a time, and you can only do it in plan view, not in profile. And all we really want to be able to do is just grab a whole series of pipes that I want, structures, plan or profile, right? And I can swap them all at once. So I picked what I wanted, then I run parts swapper. And I get a simple interface that allows me to choose pipes and structures by selection, which is how it defaults. Or if I choose, I could grab the entire network. So I am swapping out the entire storm network. I'm changing all the pipe types, okay? So two different selection methods there. Down here, the parts I'm going to swap, there's 3 structures, 4 pipes. I can clear that and go select new parts again. And then right down here, my parts list, I'm going to swap in the storm sewer parts list. That's what exists in my drawing. So this is reading your styles in your catalog right from your setup. And I can choose the new structure I want, and I can also choose the new pipe I want. So those are 36-inch. They were to be 30-inch RCP instead. Now I'd mentioned another option here where you can retain size, okay? What if I chose that whole pipe network and I want to maintain 24-inch and 36-inch sizes, but I want to switch from RCP to a different pipe type, okay? If I click on retain size, this drop-down becomes a little bit different. You can no longer select the part sizes right within. You can only choose the family. What Part Swapper will then do is maintain all those sizes, but give it the corresponding size in the new family. okay? And if there isn't a new size, it gives you a workflow to handle all that, like I'd said. But in this case, we're just gonna grab 30-inch, okay? So we're gonna swap out these manholes for catch basins, the 36-inch for 30-inch. When I hit OK on that, you'll see those curb inlets show up down here. Oops, looks like I missed a pipe there. These are all swapped to 30-inch, okay? A very simple command, swapping parts for you all at once, plan or profile, whatever you choose. Let's talk corridors a little bit. We've got a whole series of corridor tools there. I've got other webcasts and videos on YouTube you can check out to learn about those. But again, our focus today is on the free stuff. So corridor cleanup is one of these handy tools that aid in working with your corridors. So perhaps where you've modeled out an intersection or kind of a complex varying width or slope portion of your project, that requires a lot of corridor targeting, okay? And if you're not real familiar with corridors, but maybe you've got other folks in your department that use them a lot, targeting in corridors, it's kind of where all the magic is. You have to assign all these polylines and feature lines and alignments and profiles to control varying lane slopes and lane widths, all sorts of different things. And it's a very tedious approach on how you assign that, okay? And we've got a really powerful tool called Corridor Mapper that aids with the assignment of that stuff. But oftentimes, what we're after is simply kind of a reset or a nuke button on a portion of our corridor, or even all of our corridor. As you can see, I've got dozens of targets assigned to my corridor, okay? To remove those targets, I need to go into each and every one of these interfaces, pick these like this, delete them, on and on down the list, okay? Corridor cleanup allows me to pick my corridor, and it loads that similar definition of my corridor, all my baselines and my regions, okay? As I pick on a particular region or baseline, it will zoom to that so I know which one I'm dealing with. Okay, if I choose the overall corridor, it'll zoom to the extents of that. And then I can grab any baselines or regions within and then choose to strip surface, width, or slope and elevation targets from that baseline region or entire corridor. Now for effect, I'm gonna leave them all on so you can get a sense of what it can do, but it would be unique every time you use it. Maybe it's just this intersection, the cul-de-sac or something, right? In that case, we could choose just that selection set either way. So you can, there's these cascading checkboxes. If I check on the whole corridor, maybe uncheck it and then go and grab just that baseline and or region. Okay, lots of intuitive control there. And then, like I said, you can turn off or on different corridor target types that you want to remove. If I hit OK to this, it's going to pull what is dozens of targets out of my corridor at once. And you can see it, a lot of this targeting is gone now, right? Because this is such an iterative process, building out your corridor as the design develops and as your approach to modeling the corridor may change, this can be a very tedious process. Just removing or deleting corridor targets. So that's why we built this tool, that's why I made it free, because it's a straightforward thing we're after sometimes. So I just did the whole corridor just as an example. We stripped all the targets out at once, okay? You most likely are going to take a particular roadway at a time, strip targets out, okay? So a nice reset button on portions of your corridor. Let's take a look at that final tool that's called LineType Manager. And this is a tool that works with line types. And I'd mentioned it in the introduction, kind of how it works. One thing I forgot to point out is that it's not making like special CTC LineType Manager line types. These are just native line types. It's just doing the editing for you, okay? So let's open up File Explorer here. I'm going to go to where I've got a LineType file, just kind of my demonstration one here. I'm going to open it up in Notepad. Okay, so all of us are familiar with coming in here, right, making these text edits. Is that what I want? I'm not sure. Well, let's try it. You come back to AutoCAD and Civil3D, right, and you open up a LineType and you load it in here, and then you assign it to a polyline. And does that work right? Does that look right? And you go no, and you can spend what could be hours or not, if not days of time on one of the most fundamental basic things in AutoCAD, which is just line types. So LineType Manager allows us to open up a lin file and it'll parse it right in this interface, okay? You might have seen some of the updating down here. It's parsing shape files, okay, all the information that feeds into a LineType file, shape files that might be referenced in there, and it loads it right in here. It builds the same list that you've seen in your LineType file. What it does, though, is it gives you a preview, and this is a print, an AutoCAD plotting type preview. Okay, it's matching what you would see with plotting. Okay, if you have a particular, like I've got a Roman text style assigned in this line type. Okay, it's reading the text style in the current drawing and taking the font assigned there. Here's another one right here. Notice the font is different. Okay, so it's giving you print quality or plot quality previews right within here. Now, hopefully you're not editing, creating line types every single day, but when you need to, it often can be hours or days of work. Okay, so we can take one of these line types and we can do a variety of things with it. I can open it up in the editor, and perhaps there's a change I want to make to some of the spacing around this. Okay, so here's what a line type definition looks like in LineType Editor. Okay, instead of this thing with this kind of goofy, it's like a simple programming language. You got to know what all these little things stand for. What we do is we parse that right within LineType Manager to give you a list of components with an intuitive explanation on what that is. Okay, so there's a line component, here's a space component. Okay, and this is like chronological, starting from left to right. How is that line type defined? I first started with a line component, then a space that was 0.2 wide. Now, as I change this, let's change it to 0.15. Now watch as I tab out of this, that space is going to change ahead of the H. Okay, now that right there, right, to know what that would look like, you would change it in the line file, save it, go back to AutoCAD, import it, assign it to the polyline. Does that look right? Right? We get instant feedback on that appearance. So as I change it, again, it responds in kind. Let's say we wanted to tighten up the spacing around just the text in the middle. Okay, it's as simple as that, right? And it's a little tweak, 0.17. That's what I'm after. Okay. Now, depending on whether you're working imperial or if you're working in metric or just the size of the line types, you can choose from all sorts of different scales to give you a reasonable visual preview. We're at 50. If I go to 20 scale, right, it zooms out there. Okay, so I hit OK. Now when I hit save to this, it's going to write that information back to the lin file that I uploaded here. Okay, if I come up here, Notepad++ is going to say, hey, this has changed. Do you want to refresh this? I'll say yes. And if we in fact scroll down, here's that hot water supply. Okay, and these values have been updated. Remember the 0.15? It knew to write that in the right place. Remember the 0.17? It knew to update that in the correct place. Let's make a line type from scratch. Maybe it's a a steam line. Now you can still put descriptions in here, but with LineType Manager, it actually doesn't even really matter anymore because you have the preview and what it looks like really is the important part. But you can put the description and it'll write it into your LineType file right here. So when you create a new line type in LineType Manager, it just defaults with some line and space components. So let's say we want to start with a line and a space, and then we want to put in a shape file. So let's delete this space and this line, okay? And again, this works from top down. This is the order components appear in the line type as you move left to right in the preview. So we're going to do a line component. Let's actually shorten that up to 0.5. Make this one 0.1. Then we're going to add a shape component. Now, a more complex component like a shape or a text component, we have a lot of parameters to deal with, of course. What shape file are we going to read from? Okay, this is parsing the shape files referenced in options. Okay, in your file search path and options, what you have pointed to in there, LineType Manager will find that. And then the shapes within those shape files, it will read those. Okay. So I'm going to grab the box shape, and right away down here, we start to get a preview. Okay. Now this is just a little window, so depending on the size of the component, you know, might need to adjust the scale to give you the right kind of preview that you're after. Let's say we want 0.15 for the height. X and Y offset, that looks good. Now, as I'm looking at this, I might think, you know, the line space does need to be bigger. Let's put that back to 0.8. Space that out a little more. Okay. Then the shape, let's do 0.10 after all. Okay, now I want to put a space after my shape component. Let's say 0.5 perhaps. And then let's duplicate the shape component. I want to have like two boxes, kind of like a 8, the number 8 symbol on its side. So I can duplicate this, okay? And I want that to show up right next to the other one. So that's a product of the shape or the space in between the two. Okay, so that's working correctly now. And the math kind of makes sense, right? The height of these boxes I set at 0.1, my space is 0.2. Okay, that spacing behaves the same way it does if you're working in the native lin file. Okay, so after there, we need another space. Try 0.5, not gonna do it. This is what I mean by the quick feedback, right? I can just quickly type and guess at what it should look like. If I like it, hit OK. Okay, now that shows up down here. I can save this up here. And if I go back to Notepad Editor, reload that, there is that Steam line type. Okay. So again, it's creating just native line types. We're just giving you a whole better interface to do it within. So you can create new ones, open other ones, do a save as. Okay, a lot of different things here. Some of the other functionality, okay, if you've created line types, say you've got your template open in the background, you want to add that to the drawing, go ahead and click that. I'll add that into the current drawing. Let's close out of here. Let's grab this polyline. Here is that Steam line type, and there it shows up, okay? What about the reverse of that, okay? If I've got geometry in the drawing, I've got line types in the drawing that aren't in my lin file, it's a common thing. Old lin files get lost, right? The line type definition can hang out in the template, but say you're trying to, you know, update or clean up your line types after a few years, and you're trying to get them all into one lin file, you often need to read those line types from an existing drawing or an existing template. And so what we can do in here is the opposite of add to drawing. I can import. I can import from a drawing, okay? So if I go and pick these two right here, it's going to find a fiber and a fuel line, okay? It gives you some shapefile or character rotation options on import. And then those will write right into LineType Manager. Will show up at the bottom here. And there they are. Okay. And then when I save it, it of course writes it back to the lin file itself. And now I've got my fiber and my fuel line. Okay. Now you can manipulate the order of things in your LineType file as well. You might have seen some of these other things, these filters. As I type words up here, it filters what's in the list. Okay. The order right here, okay, this is set to actual. That's the actual order of the line types in the lin file. But I can set it to display only, and in that way we get to sort this by different headers, like the name or the description. Oftentimes we've got hundreds of line types in our lin file, so different ways to parse through and sort through that is really handy. If I go back to actual, these options over here, the up and down buttons, give me control on sorting. So I can take and move the sort order, right? If I want to keep my LineType file nice and neat and tidy, and the fiber should show up under the hot water supply. Okay, when I save that, okay, that again is going to write back to the lin file. Now that fiber is no longer on the bottom, but it's right here underneath the hot water supply. So detailed control on each line type definition and the organization of the entire lin file itself. So that is LineType Manager, another free tool, a powerful tool. This one, in fact, when you install Sim Manager Suite, it will install in base AutoCAD. Okay, most of the tools we make are for Civil3D, but LineType Manager and one of the paid tools here, part of Layer Boss, the ability to export your layer dialog to Excel. You get a really smart export. You can manipulate it there, and then you can sync it back to your drawing or your templates. Okay, these will show up in base AutoCAD for you to use, so they're not just Civil3D. Okay. So if you're wondering how to get your hands on this stuff, it's pretty simple. Go to our website, ctcsoftware.com. You can download the Sim Project Suite, and that is the first 4 tools I talked about. You can download the Sim Manager Suite, and that is the LineType Manager I talked about. You can get access to all of the tools in there for free for 2 weeks, and then the ones I showed you today are free indefinitely. Okay. I wish you all a great day. Take care.